/askreddit. What's a fact about you that sounds completely unbelievable? I have seen my own intestine. Since somebody asked, semi-truck blew a red light as I was pulling out of the hospital I worked at. The ED crew ran out, shoveled me off the asphalt, and ran me inside. If it had been anywhere else I'd have bled out before an ambulance arrived. It broke my left everything, including 10 ribs, many of which wound up in my lung, one of which is still unaccounted for. I was fortunate enough not to suffer any spinal damage, but I did lose my left leg below the knee. I've made a mostly full recovery, less the leg and significant lung functionality. If you think about how a grape splits open when you squeeze it too hard, you'll have the right idea. A friend had her C-section wound unzip and she had to call for help while cradling a section of intestine. Still makes me shudder to think about. A Victoria's Secret model married me. I wrote a song that was played on the radio for years. I won a college bowl game. All of the above is true, but not nearly as impressive as it sounds. She was a catalog model, not the runway type. We were young. She was pretty damn amazing. I was 12 and got a keyboard for Christmas. I called the Friday night request DJ in my podunk town and told him I wrote him a song. He recorded it and opened his show with it for years because it was so campy. It was a community college bowl game. 2 teenagers were locked out of their car and I had nothing in my car to use, so I got it open using a tree branch to hit the unlock button on the key ring, on the ground of the passenger's side floorboard. They called me Majiva. Best compliment of my life. Reminds of the time I went home back from the army, not the American army, and wanted to take the bus home in my home city. I just missed the bus. The driver and the passengers saw me running and just started to drive away. So I took another bus that will intercept the first bus later on. It took a different route, so my bus got to the other station just 20 seconds before the first bus got there. The bus stops, I get on it and these 2 teenagers just stare at me. Then one of them asks me, "Are you Superman?" That was a nice feeling, and I got home 15 minutes later, which was even better. I often have to poop up to 6 times in a day. I don't know what is wrong with me. Chevy Chase was drunk driving up my street, crashed into my house, and completely ran over and destroyed my mailbox. After a conversation with his wife who was extremely nice and apologetic, I walked up the street to meet Chevy personally, and he gave me a $750 check to pay for a new mailbox that in reality cost about $14 to replace. I have 3 wisdom teeth and no appendix. Apparently my body just forgot to grow them. You are not Homo sapiens. You are Homo superior, identified by your lack of superfluous organs. We must make way for you're the start of the coming race. The Earth is a by-ch. We've finished our news. Homo sapiens have outgrown their use. All the strangers came today, and looks as though they're here to stay. As far as I know the wisdom teeth aren't helpful in any way, but the appendix actually does serve a purpose. It acts as a reservoir of good gut bacteria to repopulate the GI tract in case of a bad infection, etc. Nowadays it's not helpful because we have antibiotics, so all it does is explode, but at least it's trying. I was my dad's 30th birthday gift. Born the same day, exactly 30 years apart. I have somehow survived so many respiratory illnesses, including a collapsed lung, and SHT that I should 100% be dead. Somehow, Myers keeps living. I have never been inside a McDonald's, Burger King or a Wendy's in my life and am 24 and I live in the USA. This is literally one of the most unbelievable things on this question. I believe the medical problems on here and the stories because my dad has been brought back to life before himself, but this? The fact that someone in America has never been to McDonald's, Wendy's, or Burger King? Crazy. kind of sad when an extreme medical emergency is more believable than someone not going to a fast food restaurant. Thanks for the surprisingly thought-provoking answer. I was born with a birth defect and had one pointy ear. So technically I'm a half-elf. I've died twice, second time was dead nearly 20 minutes and suffered minimal brain damage. I'm missing 3.5 ribs. Found Marilyn Manson. Man, I have too many mad stories. I tend to avoid telling half of them because they're pretty ridiculous. I have morphea scleroderma, an autoimmune thing which made my immune system attack my skin pigments and discolored a patch of me lol. I grew up in Scotland and because it was so rare I was dragged around to hospitals for dermatology specialists to prod at me for years. I've seen 4 different people stabbed on separate occasions, seen my dad stabbed 3 times, lol. Saw a dude after he'd been attacked with a hatchet and a claw hammer, guy survived but barely, had huge braces over him for months after. Been in a house fire, well apartment fire, had to jump out a 2nd floor window as a 9-year-old. Been in 3 car crashes, one of which I wasn't wearing a seatbelt, was thrown to a window as the car span out and we hit a tree which came through the back window where I was sitting and stuck in the back of my dad's headrest. If I had been wearing my seatbelt there's a good chance my head would have been minced. Went to watch a football game when I was 15 and ended up in a full-scale riot consisting of 150,000 angry, drunken, Scottish football fans. Here is a link to some footage, crazy day. And the list genuinely goes on. I can dislocate my entire right hand at the wrist. I've battled drug addiction, gambling addiction, extreme debt, income ratios, been married, divorced, very shortly, still getting finalized, have 2 beautiful girls, 5 and 3 months. I weighed 102 kilograms at my heaviest, down to 69 kilograms in 3 months via not particularly healthy diet change, owned 40 plus different cars, been a retail store steward, a bar manager, a small business owner, currently working as a shot firer, mining explosives operator, currently writing a course to train people to do said job, and a work of fiction hoping to be published. Probably missed a few bits and pieces. Only 27 years old. My ancestry is a complete mix of many ethnicities, but according to genetic tests, my DNA 100% matches the ancient populations of Central Asia. Yeah, my parents accidentally reconstructed pure Aryan race. I also have blue eyes and blonde hair, but different face than the Aryans from Nazi books. According to the 19th anthropology books, I count as a pure chromanid, which is the rarest of all types in Europe, and neither of my parents count as it. I gave away 70% of my liver, right hepatectomy. Then I lost my gallbladder. Then I lost my appendix. Then I lost about 5 feet of my small intestine, duodenum and some jejunum. Then I had a case of going septic, lactate 6.4, hypertensive. Then I had a right hemicolectomy, right side of large intestine removed. Then I got Handel syndrome, basically was like a stroke for a few days. Then got a superinfection, needed 2 of the strongest antibiotics to get rid of it. Herniated 2 discs. If there are any more vestigial parts to lose, please let me know. Oh, and I'm 30. Tea makes me drunk. A single glass of standard Lipton's iced tea and I am giggly, silly, fall down drunk. Look me dead in the eye and deadpan say joke and I will piss myself laughing for half an hour. All well and good, cheap drunk, right? But I get a devastating hangover the next day, head pounding, throwing up, the whole bit. Alcohol almost never gives me a hangover, but tea hangovers are absolutely miserable. Neither my mother nor my father have wisdom teeth, and no one on either side of the family has had wisdom teeth as far back as we know. My sisters also don't have any wisdom teeth. Somehow, I ended up with 8. I died twice on the first day I was alive. And, I can see details most don't because my brain has to process every detail of an object. Rather than seeing a lamp, I see everything. The grain of the texture, the bulb, the shade, the cord. Not that people don't see these things, but they don't perceive it each time. They just see a lamp as a whole. Not 9 different lamp components. I bit my tongue off and got it stitched back on. I've had 2 siblings die, my only 2 exes are now trans, which doesn't sound that impressive until you consider that's a 127,777 odds or so. I have more baggage, but they mostly come across as believable, so I'll stop there. Oh yes, and half of my face stopped working in my senior year of high school. I have 2 fairly benign but rare diseases. I have Duane syndrome, which is under 5% in my right eye. I also have otosclerosis in both ears, and was at approximately 90% loss in both ears, only diagnosed after university graduation, but doctor suggested had been like that for at least 5 years, maybe 10. I've also got degenerative osteoarthritis in my ankles, despite only being 33, and have had surgery to remove bone cysts on them. My eyelids can be reverted, like when you blink you see the inside and when you are looking to a mirror seeing the outside. Well, I can do this with my eyelids using my hands, and I can stay like an hour like this. I made a girl vomit. Don't do it. Your eyes are gonna dry. I got my foreskin removed when I was 8, but the doctor failed to sufficiently anesthetize my penis, leaving me feel every needle, knife, scissors cutting through my genital. Left me traumatized for life and afraid of having any sexual relations even after 4 years of marriage. My great-grandfather's story. He was born in Estonia, and after getting in trouble with the Russian mafia there as a teenager he fled to Sweden where he joined the military. World War II, and he's sent to Italy to help some friends of friends get out of trouble with his brothers. Battle between the Italians and Allies goes south, and one of his brothers is killed. The other 2, along with himself, are captured and sent to a POW camp in Italy. A couple months in, another of his brothers is killed in the camp. Following that, Mussolini shows up to the camp and talks with my great-grandpa. Why, I couldn't tell you. After that, him and his last surviving brother attempt to jailbreak where he escapes, but loses his brother. My grandfather goes north until he's captured by the Russians, who he talks his way out of being a prisoner with and is rather treated as a guest until one day he's summoned by none other than Joseph Stalin, who he becomes friends with. At the end of the war, Stalin sends him back to Sweden with a coin and a watch with the engraving from Joseph to Reinhardt. I couldn't think with thoughts/dialogues until I was about 8-9ish. I have aphasia, so I couldn't speak at all when I was little, so it took a couple of years of daily training to learn to speak and understand language. My appendix essentially ruptured twice. The first time it simply ruptured. By some miracle, my body walled off the infection, forming a huge pocket. After about 2 months, that ruptured. I was 19, stupid, and didn't go to the hospital even though I was in excruciating pain, had high fevers, vomiting, etc. When I finally went, I wasn't expected to live through the night. My parents were told it had gone on for a very long time. They asked when I originally had gotten sick, and were informed it was about 2 months prior. I was in septic shock, and was in surgical ICU for 2 weeks. I'm lucky to be here. My ears don't curl inward like everyone else, they're mostly flat. I've essentially broken my hip joint, without breaking the bone. Bone disintegration,